What up, y'all? I know not everyone feels like listening to a 40+ minute poll plans video for the month, so I broke it up to abbreviate my thoughts in a more easily digestible way. I know half of y'all, though, ain't subscribed, so go ahead and do that. Like the video, leave a comment with what you think about the upcoming content and your plans as well. And if you want to see the whole video, I'll be providing a link to that as well. Check that out for sure. Thanks a million, and now let's get into what you're really here for, alright? Divine Alexander is the beginning of the month, and Golbez is coming back. He's getting an LD and burst, and a rework as well. His rework makes all his skills multiple HP attacks. Skill 1 is 3 HP attacks, I believe, and it has 20% splash. And skill 2 is also 3 HP attacks now, and it also drops his Dark Imperil, so he has an easier time maintaining that. His LD, it's a quadruple HP attack, I think, and drops the Dark Imperil again. And it refreshes his stacks to 3 buffs, and it gives him a new buff as well. He has random Brave and HP damage resist for some reason, and now this introduces a new mechanic for Golbez, which continues for some characters down the line. But I don't know how they're gonna localize it, but it's stolen, brave, gained up. So basically, don't think about it too hard. It's calculated after the fact, so it's somewhat ignoring brave damage reduction. You know what? Never mind. Don't worry about it. But when Golbez hits for 100 brave damage, he's going to actually, in his numbers down in the bar, he's going to get 120. So he's getting an extra percent for every brave hit he does. And this is real good for Golbez because Golbez has a ton of brave hits in his kit. He also gets, this is only when he hits weakness damage though, so he's very reliant on hitting that dark weakness damage. And his LD buff also gives him HP damage up, and he gets refund after his turn finishes. As for his calls, regular one is skill 2, drops the Dark Imperil, and it just does damage. And his LD call, it's in the same realm as Cam and Terra, where you get HP refund after doing the attack, so that's pretty strong. And his burst effect, it gives, aside from some of the usual goodies like caps up, and it gives brave damage up, and it also gives an aura freeze effect similar to Setzer, except there's no debuff, so you can't cleanse it. It's just always active, which can be situationally very, very powerful, and it fits the motive of him. I think it's the Binding Cold. I'm not too familiar with Golbez in the Dissidia games, but that's pretty dope. He's got the brave attack focused high armor, so if you're trying to run Golbez, make him hit really high brave attacks, then this is the one to go for. Just, however, don't max him, don't blue his armor. I know it's nice and pretty blue stuff, new ingots and stuff, but don't max him just to farm faster. That ain't it. That ain't worth it. Hope is on the banner. He gets high armor plus and nothing else. And then Vivi, Laguna, Shadow, Thancred all get 80 and calls, but nothing spectacular there. I guess considering Vivi has an LD now in GL but not JP, that adds some extra viability to him, which is pretty dope. But otherwise, yeah, that's about it. My thoughts on Golbez are he's a very powerful damage dealer with one weakness, and that is the Dark Imperil that he relies on. Say we have so much debuff for real estate management issues going on right now, so if that Dark Imperil falls off, he loses a ton. He doesn't get the stolen brave damage up, he gets a huge weakness damage boost, and he just basically hits like a noodle until you can get that back up, which relies on a skill 2. And relying that heavily on a generic Imperil, I'm not a fan of it. That's not saying Golbez can't be used for a while, because he's very, very powerful. Don't get me wrong. I personally hate it, because I like running my normal Jet call, Gabranth call, Ignis call, and then other random debuffs, and having to build around that is not my idea of fun. But if you love Golbez, obviously you can just think around that. Obviously you can put Zande's call or run him with Toto or something and stuff like that, but again, not my cup of tea. His burst effect is very situationally powerful, but you're not going to be leaning on that unless you build around it. But building around it is such a buzzword at that point. I need to stop saying that. And as for playing him, I think there's a use case for having a C65 up permanently, but I'm not too sure about that. I'm sure some Golbez fans will think about that. And on that note as well, actually it's not that note, but in my lockout or shutout myth video, I mentioned that Golbez gets hit by the fights countering him in the second half of the month, but it's like literally 3 fights. It's Bartz's fight, which is Imperial Immune. Imperial Immunes mean Golbez is just dead. And then it's Boss Rush 4, which has a combination of debuff immunity Imperial Immunity on another wave and Dark Absorb on another wave. So that's not friendly for Golbez. And then Eldnarsh's burst event, which is right after Tifa's boss rush at the end of the month, which counters magic attacks. After that, Golbez is smooth sailing, but just those 3 fights are not kind to him. But anyone over-exaggerating him getting locked out by Dark Imperial is just wrong, because it's just a period of fights, and then after that he's cool. All right, so don't let I know I ragged on the Dark Imperial thing, but it's really not an issue for his usability as a whole. It's just my opinion that I don't like it. All right, that being said, he's very easy to put on a team, very easy to just pump his damage up. He's raw damage, so if you're lacking damage and need to make turns better, Golbez can do that just fine. He's very self-sufficient and can go anywhere. Super easy to build around. Am I pulling though? I'm pulling the LD to farm, and that is it. I have no intention of using him outside of Synergy. I'm not going to chase his burst. Not a huge fan of the character. I would not recommend anything beyond his base high armor to farm faster. I personally get the high armor for all burst characters because it's good hedge to invest in these guys at all times. I heavily regret bluing him in JP, as I've said. Not my thing, but yeah. And don't pull for... I wouldn't recommend going for Hope at this point either. Hope is just LD other banner filler, so yeah, ignore that unless you really like Hope. But I shouldn't have to say if you like a pull, because you're not trying to hear what I think. You already made up your mind. Anyways, Golbez reruns in the future during Transcendent 6, where he gets an LD board rework, which gives him a little bit more HP damage up and stolen brave gained up. I hate that term. I can't wait to see what they localize it as. And he's during Caius's burst cycle, and he also reruns alongside Bosch's LD. I will say that this is probably the best time to run Golbez if you really like him, although he's plenty viable down the road. I didn't like his upgrades then, but still plenty viable. I hate having to keep saying that, but then somebody's always going to say, oh, well, I proved Golbez can work. Nobody said he won't. Just people aren't fans of him. All right. As for the fight, this fight gets broken by Gladio. It's pretty notorious. I'm not going to make a video on doing the Gladio cheese because there's already going to be like 50 of them. It's going to be extremely saturated, and I don't really care for that stuff. Same reason I didn't upload the Yuffie cheese of the Mog Lufenia, but the basic gist of it is Alexander has a mechanic where it counters you when the whole party is at max Brave. So you can abuse that with Gladio by having his LD buff up and then dropping everyone's M Brave as low as possible, so that when Gladio counters, he batteries the party to full, and then Alex counters you, and then it goes in a loop until Alexander is dead. And you can buff this by having effects up that boost HP damage and the like, and it'll be Gladio, Alex ping-ponging until Alex is dead. That was a popular strategy. It was nerfed, but not in the sense that they didn't want you cheesing it. The only change that happened to Alexander from release in JP to later on was that Alexander's Brave reduction auras literally didn't, or Brave gain reduction auras, I should say, literally didn't kick in. But the loop still worked. It just became slightly more difficult to set it up, but it's still possible to this day. The buff to encouragement armor also helps us a ton. So we'll check around for examples of that when it starts in global. As for doing the fight legit, this fight is actually hilariously toxic. This month has probably the peak of questionable fights, and it wouldn't surprise me if we lose some people this month, because man, well, first off, it's wholly absorbed, just a womp womp. Sorry, Cecil, again, it's immune to taunt, regular Setzer freeze, defense down, Arciela's LD debuff, and Waka's LD debuff. They really went all out here. And the orb is +5 when you hit dark damage, right? And Alexander is still toxic. It has the mechanic where you need to break it multiple times, and they're selling the Golbez burst effect since it's immune to all other preventing Brave gains. Well, I guess Yuffie's debuff is okay if you want to run her. So for the orb, you got Xande, Golbez, Vivi, not Toto, because, well, I guess you could technically use Toto, but her EX is not, her EX is holy, I should say, so that's going to be a pain to use, but it's still possible, obviously. Dark Knight, Cecil, and Leon, I think they're the only dark characters in the game, so yeah, it's kind of sus. And it's got cancer mechanics again. You got, like I said, you got to break it continually. And however, this time it delays itself every time it does the Brave gains in between. And there's some other nasty parts to it, like I think it's if you're not at full HP and it gets a turn after the recast, it debuffs you or something. And then there's the full Brave counter, and the turns are framed, no delay, and no break delay either. So you have to let it get to, oh, and that's right. I think it's after eight consecutive turns. So if you're trying to Terra Young this thing and not let it get a turn that way, after 8 player turns in a row that Alex doesn't get a turn, it sets all Brave and HP done to 0. So you have to let it get, you really have to let it get a turn. So yeah, this fight sucks. But thankfully, if you are having trouble with it, even a Gladio friend can initiate the loop. So fear not those who do not pull Gladio and run around for him. You too can get through this. No shame in doing that. I'm probably going to do it. I'm probably going to do both, honestly, because I want an excuse to bust out Zande and try some other stupid stuff. But yeah, this fight really, really sucks. Get your W by any means, enjoy the farm, and don't stress yourself out. And that's it. Hope you all enjoyed the clip and found it informative. I do try my best, generally. If you haven't already done so, please like the video, comment what you think and your plans, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more great content. The full video is linked, so check that out as well. Continue showing love. Good luck, everybody. Peace.